Ladies and gentlemen, this is the podcast, and if you didn't know, Donald Trump says FAFO. And now your hosts, Josh Hammerling, Max McGuire.
Welcome back, Right Guys Podcast. Happy Monday. Oh my goodness. My name is Max McGuire here with Mr. Producer Josh Hammerling. This weekend, whirlwind, almost got in a trade war with Colombia. Would we ever have survived?
Even start.
Josh, would we ever have survived?
A trade war.
Would we ever have survived?
I'm just thinking what like one of their biggest exports must be like
coffee,
flowers.
Flowers
really?
Would have been rough going into Valentine's.
Yeah. Okay.
And they also export chocolate, so it's not like you could just say, I'm going to get my wife chocolates.
Really?
Valentine's Day could have been a little rough.
Okay.
I guess I'll pull up one of them. You know who Harry Sisson is?
Yeah.
Oh, he's a little dweeb. We played that clip.
I know who he is. Yeah,
he's of him on Piers Morgan's show. And
just
like,
getting
Harry,
beat
how
up.
many genders are there, Harry? And he thinks I'm gonna go with Joe Biden at least.
Right.
Very, very funny because he's so bad. He's so bad. So yesterday, he was joining the chorus of Democrats saying, Donald Trump's going to make everything more expensive. Here, let me pull up the tweet.
Why? Really?
He's ruining your everything. Here's the tweet. Colombia supplies 27% of America's coffee and a huge portion of our cut flowers, roots, bulbs, and more. With Valentine's Day just 18 days away, get ready for your morning coffee and Valentine's Day celebration to be far more expensive. I mean, he isn't wrong. If we had gotten into a trade war with reciprocal tariffs, coffee, chocolate, there's a lag time to it, right?
Sure. So we wouldn't see it for a couple months, but
you wouldn't see it for a couple months. But flowers have to be shipped same day, right? They die. You can't just ship flowers a month later. That would have been where it was felt the most. But it's an interesting argument they're making, and it's one that I lay out in my book, The Conservative's Guide to Winning Every Immigration Argument. It's like they're saying that we all should live and suffer with illegal alien rapists, criminals, sex offenders, murderers in our communities, because the alternative, paying 25% more for flowers for Valentine's Day, it's just too much. Like imagine going man on the street. Which would you rather have? Flowers that cost 25% more, or all of the illegal alien rapists removed from your community? What do you think people answer? Of course they say get rid of the rapists. Like, of course. It's not a real argument. And this is something that Democrats have been really trying to do since Donald Trump took office. After 4 years of them saying that inflation is transitory and inflation isn't that bad and the economy is really strong and inflation doesn't matter. The minute Donald Trump was sworn in, they're running to the grocery stores taking pictures of the eggs. Oh, look what Donald Trump did. Look what Donald Trump did. Look what he did.
Their idea on inflation was so transitory, it moved right to the next administration, apparently.
That's what they meant by transitory inflation.
It wasn't us, right?
That's what they meant by transitory inflation.
So the biggest flex Hisson had on that was that coffee's going to go up and we're not going to get... I'm just saying like bulb flowers, like the stuff you buy at Home Depot for your garden and the perennials, all that stuff, right? That's really what we're talking about here. And it's like, that's his flex. That's what he's going on.
And here's the other flex he did. He said, breaking, after getting the U.S. into a trade war with Colombia, Trump decided to call it a day and play some golf at Mar-a-Lago. He's not working. He's relaxing while hurting hardworking Americans. First of all, it was Sunday, right? So that is a weekend. But it kind of disproves his point that he started and won a trade war before he even finished 18 holes of golf.
Joe Biden took more vacations than all the presidents pretty much combined, right? And he's trying to make the claim that Trump isn't working on the golf course on a Sunday. I mean, he just met them.
Joe Biden didn't take working vacations. He went on the beach and slept, right? When you're on the golf course, I mean, look who he's on the golf course with. Can you see this? That's Marco Rubio.
Oh.
The Secretary of State was there with him.
Hey,
right? So saying like he's conducting foreign policy on the golf course. The Secretary of State is there. And do you know why Donald Trump's at the golf course? Because the GOP lawmaker retreat, which happens every year, is happening at the golf course with Trump. All of the GOP lawmakers are there for a round of golf this week and for meetings. So the flex, I mean, Harry is taking so many L's. It's making my head spin a little bit.
How did he get famous?
From what's the most PG way? The first three ways.
I'm afraid to know now.
The first 3 ways I want to describe what he did to Joe Biden is not PG. He was a Joe Biden fanboy. Let's just say that fanboy.
Oh God,
fanboy. And you can imagine all the not PG ways to describe someone who's just so enamored with Joe Biden. Harry Sisson was so enamored with Joe Biden after the debate, where it became obvious to everyone what we've been saying for a long time, that Joe Biden's mental decline had reached the event horizon, right? You can't get past it. Harry Sisson was still saying he was strong and secure and with it, and he's sharp as a tack, right? He was the last one to get off of the narrative. And he's actually still not off of the propaganda. He's still saying that Joe Biden was sharp as a tack. But yeah, so Donald Trump was at the golf course, as you can see, with the Secretary of State. I think that's RFK Jr. there.
Hey, if I'm not mistaken, don't a lot of big name players usually do their job on the golf course when you like Donald Trump has done business on the golf course.
You can work. I mean, he just won a trade war on the golf course, right?
Yeah.
So the notion that he has to be in the office on a Sunday, it's ridiculous. Also, it's the GOP. It's the GOP.
He was probably working overtime. There's lots of talking. Remember, Donald Trump's the kind of president that has that person in his ear who's ready to whisper something in a moment's notice, right? It's not the Joe Biden, we told Mr. Biden we'll see if he wakes up from a nap and do something about it sort of world anymore, right?
No, not anymore. Let me see if I can find it. Did you read what Petro, the president of Colombia, what he put out yesterday?
About his airplanes to go and pick them up personally?
No, so it was kind of happening all so fast. It kind of made my head spin a little bit, because the minute someone was reporting on something, it completely changed. So what happened yesterday is that 2 flights of Colombian deportees, these are people with criminal records, like hardened criminal records, were being sent back to Colombia. These weren't just people who had civil violations. These are people who committed serious crimes in the United States, and we were deporting them. So they were deported on military flights with handcuffs on. If you're deporting a group of murderers and rapists and child abusers on a flight, you're going to put handcuffs on them. I mean, that's the international standard for putting criminals on a flight. Like, you can't have them taking over the flight. Like, what? But apparently, Colombia took issue with this. Apparently, there is, in their national consciousness, there is a history of governments abducting people and taking them on secret flights and handcuffing them. Apparently, it's a bad look. Doesn't matter. It's what you have to do. You put a bunch of what was that?
Here's your people back.
Con Air. You ever see that movie? Con Air?
I loved it back in the day. Yeah, I loved it.
Basically,
it was stupid.
This is Latin American Con Air, what people were putting on these planes. So they apparently took issue with that. Didn't allow the planes to land. That didn't sit well.
Strong pass, bro.
yeah.
It's a strong pass. Thanks.
To show just how prepared Donald Trump is for this, he had 2 shells already in the barrel, right? He was ready to go. Like, he didn't have to figure out what to do. And let me see if I can find Trump's actual, he announced that there was going to be tariffs immediately. If they didn't allow them. He cut off their visas, not just for Petro, but any government official, including any supporters of the government. They shut down the embassy. They canceled all visa appointments. And this is the real kicker that I think is what helped push it across the finish line. Trump announced that every import from Colombia would go through enhanced inspection at all ports of entry.
Oh my gosh.
Now, that is a big deal, because Colombia's chief exports, we just told you, are coffee, chocolate, flowers. Off the books, their chief export is cocaine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
That joke's always there.
But it's true. So
Yeah, right.
if every single crate, every single shipping container from Colombia all of a sudden was subjected to an intense inspection, don't care how long it takes, we're taking the entire thing apart, there would be no Colombian cocaine into the United States. At least through tradition, they have to go other ways, right? Because we know they hide it in shipments. We know they get it.
Right, they have to. Like it's.
I think that is the pressure that got to Petro yesterday, because after Petro saw Donald Trump's threat, he offered, through official channels, they offered to allow the U.S. to use the Colombian presidential plane. So that's what came through official channels. But through unofficial channels on Petro's Twitter account, X account, we got almost immediately a completely different thing. And I want to read it because just how unhinged this is. This, if you had to ask me, how would you describe this? This is someone who took Literature 101 in college, and the TA said, you have a real gift for this. And someone's lived their whole life thinking they're a fabulous writer.
So me, that's fantastic.
Spoiler alert, his rant against Trump also admits to his own gastrointestinal diagnosis. This is how weird this thing got. Let me zoom in so people can see it. He said, Trump, I don't really like traveling to U.S. Pause. That's a lie. He goes to Disney World all the time. And unpause. It's a bit boring, but I do confess there are some commendable things. I like going to the black neighborhoods of Washington, where I saw an entire fight in the U.S. Capitol between blacks and Latinos with barricades, which seemed like nonsense today to me because they should join together. Pause. Does he think that that's like a Republican thing?
I don't know.
Like if you told
I'm
that
not
to a
getting
Republican,
this.
yeah, there's some dangerous neighborhoods in Washington D.C. We should figure that out. I guess he thought that is a.
Is there a contextual thing I'm missing here?
No, he's just, how do I dunk on the U.S.?
Okay.
Oh, you have racial tensions in Washington D.C. Yeah, well, you know what helps cause the racial tensions? You and other countries in Central and South America emptying your prisons and mental institutions and sending your criminal class here. Yeah, I mean, that has led to this. Okay, unpause. I confess that I like Walt Whitman, Paul Simon, Noam Chomsky, and Miller. That was because, unpause. That was because Donald Trump called him a socialist, a communist. I mean, see, this is really weird. And this is the translate. It was originally in Spanish. Unpause. I confess that Sacco and Vanzetti, I don't even know who that are, who have my blood, are memorable in the history of the USA, and I follow them. Oh, those are like the communist labor leaders. Okay. They were murdered by labor leaders with the electric chair and fascists who are within the U.S. as well as within my country. I don't like your oil, Trump. You're going to wipe out the human species because of greed. Maybe one day over a glass of whiskey, which I accept, despite my gastritis, we can talk frankly about this. But it's difficult because you consider me an inferior race, and I am not, nor is any Colombian. Pause.
What?
This is perhaps the most batshit crazy sentence I've ever read in terms of international diplomacy. It starts with telling the world he has a gastrointestinal disease, an inflamed stomach lining, and ends with him saying that Trump thinks he's an inferior race. I don't know if he thinks that his gastritis is involved in that. This is weird diplomacy. Remember, the official channels said you can have my presidential plane to bring people in.
Yeah.
The unofficial channels on his Twitter account is talking about how he poops weird, and he thinks that Donald Trump is some Nazi racist.
I'm hoping somebody posted this for him. Like, there's got to be somebody to blame, because if this is really him, it's disturbing.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's like he took a literature class and someone said, "Oh, you're really good at this. You should do it." Like they do in college, trying to get you to sign up for their major. And he didn't do it, but he always kept in the back of my mind, I'm a really good writer.
Right,
I'm a really good writer. All right, unpause. So if you know someone who is stubborn, that's me, period. You can try to carry out a coup with your economic strength and your arrogance like they did with Allende, but I will die in my law. I resisted torture and I resist you. I don't want slavers next to Colombia. We already had many and we freed ourselves. What I want next to Colombia are lovers of freedom. If you can't accompany me, I'll go elsewhere. Colombia is the heart of the world, and you didn't understand that. This is the land of yellow butterflies, of the beauty of Remedios, but also of the colonels Aureliano Buendia, of which I am one, perhaps the last. You will kill me, but I will survive in my people, which is before yours in the Americas. We are peoples of the winds, of the mountains, the Caribbean Sea, and of freedom. You don't like our freedom. Okay, I don't shake hands with white slavers. I shake hands with the white libertarian heirs of Lincoln and the black and white farm boys of the USA, at whose graves I cried and prayed on a battlefield, which I reached after walking the mountains of Italian Tuscany after being saved from COVID.
What the
They are. Pause. This is weird. This is weird. Unpause. They are the United States, and before them I kneel, before no one else. Overthrow me, President, and the Americas and humanity will respond. Colombia now stops looking north, looks at the world. Our blood comes from the blood of the Caliphate? Of Cordoba, the civilization of that time, of the Roman Latins of the Mediterranean, the civilization of that time, who founded the Republic democracy in Athens. Our blood has the black resistance fighters turned into slaves by you. In Colombia is the first free territory of America, before Washington, of all America. There I take refuge in its African songs. My land is made up of goldsmiths who worked in the time of the Egyptian pharaohs and of the first artists in the world in, I'm not even going to.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is.
Kiribikete.
Yeah.
You will never rule us. The warrior who rode our land shouting freedom, who is called Bolivar, opposes us. Our people are somewhat fearful, somewhat timid. It just keeps going.
How long is this?
Kind and loving, but they will know how to win the Panama Canal, which you took from us with violence. 200 heroes from all of Latin America lie in Bocas del Toro, today's Panama, formerly Colombia, which you murdered. I raise a flag, and as Gaitan said, even if it remains alone, it will continue to be raised with the Latin American dignity that is the dignity of America, which your great-grandfather did not know, and mine did, Mr. President, an immigrant in the USA. Your blockade does not scare me, because Colombia, besides being the country of beauty, is the heart of the world. I know that you love beauty as I do. Do not disrespect it, and you will give it your sweetness. From today on, Colombia is open to the entire world with open arms. We are builders of freedom, life, and humanity. I am informed that you impose a 50% tariff on the fruits of our human labor to enter the United States, and I do the same. Let our people plant corn that was discovered in Colombia and feed the world. The community notes, which, since I'm a member of community notes, let's read what people are. Apparently, corn wasn't discovered in Mesoamerica, in Colombia. Corn is native to Mesoamerica, where it was domesticated and spread north and south. It was discovered in Mexico. So he's being fact-checked on that. Is that the most unhinged piece of diplomacy you've ever seen?
And it's right after you've already been over backwards to make sure that the coffee keeps flowing. Right? So it feels like this empty statement to save face, so the next time he's in his the election, he can go back on this. I don't know, man. It's like poor writing out of a junior high kid who's pissed off that somebody made him look bad on the playground. Yeah. That's what it feels like.
And this guy, just so everyone knows who he is, he was a Marxist revolutionary turned politician. So I speak with flowery language. I'm sure some of it gets lost in translation.
Sure.
Like you will give it your sweetness. I'm sure that sounds a little bit better in Spanish.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, this makes 2 a.m. tweets from Trump look really normal.
I almost feel like somebody was he's dictating it to somebody or the AI, because it sounds like an unhinged sort of rant.
I think part of that is because of the translation, because things end up getting commas a lot when you translate from Spanish to English, where in Spanish it's a little bit more direct and active voice, where it might get translated in English as passive voice. But that's unhinged. That's unhinged. Yeah. And remember, this came after he capitulated and said, okay, flights can stay, but we'd like you to use our presidential plane. Okay. If you want to take all of your criminals on your plane, go for it. But by the way, there's going to be multiple flights a day, so keep it fueled. This seems more to save face with his own people.
Yeah.
This seemed like it was more posturing to save face with his people, while through official channels telling a very different story.
Yeah, I mean, what would the actual phone call sound like if they had to get on the phone with each other? Do you really think he's going to start taking that tone? Of course not.
No.
Because now he'd be talking to the big guy. Like, this is you getting your ass kicked in one room, going to the other and talking big and pumping your chest, telling everyone how awesome you did, and you got your ass kicked, right? I mean, there's nothing left. It's kind of funny to watch. It's like watching little kids fight, right? I mean, he tries to pull out something that's aha, I'm so much better than you because I do this, right? It's childlike.
It's I don't know why. So yeah, they have a lot of flowers. Valentine's Day would have been a little weird, right? We all can admit that it would have been a little weird. Coffee, other countries make coffee. Yeah. So what ends up happening is Colombian coffee gets a little bit more expensive in the United States, but every other country on earth can buy Colombian coffee at a discount, right? Because they want to offload it. So I mean, like me and my wife have an espresso machine here. I mean, I'm sure there might be some Colombian coffee in some of the roasts that we have, but we're not buying like exclusively 100% Colombian coffee. I know some people love it. That's fine. To think though that he could just win a trade war against the United States
with a text.
Yeah, with a text like, oh, it was just very funny. I want to see if I can find the White House response.
It's funny that the communist in him really kind of comes out though when pressured to it.
Yeah, the revolutionary,
right?
Like the weirdest thing is like the only Americans I bow to are the white and black farm boys who I saw climbing the mountains of Tuscany after I was saved from COVID. I don't care enough to research his story, his history. Sounds like he got COVID, went to Italy for treatment, got treated, hiked somewhere where there was an American battlefield during World War I or World War II. And that's like an important part of his...
Or he was drunk and delusional. I mean, there's always that. I mean, he could be a sauce hitter. I mean, he could be a Kamala Harris for all we know.
I know. So that was his response, in which prompted Trump and the State Department to say, whoa, you said you were giving us your plane, now you're not? Okay, everything goes into effect.
Immediately.
Late last night, this was released from the White House press secretary. The government of Colombia has agreed to all of President Trump's terms, including the unrestricted acceptance of all illegal aliens from Colombia returned from the United States, including on military aircraft, without limitation or delay. Based on this agreement, the fully drafted IEEPA tariffs and sanctions will be held in reserve and not signed unless Colombia fails to honor this agreement. The visa sanctions issued by the State Department and enhanced border inspections from Customs and Border Protection will remain in effect until the first plane load of Colombian deportees is successfully returned. Today's events make clear to the world that America is respected again. President Trump will continue to fiercely protect our nation's sovereignty, and he expects all other nations of the world to fully cooperate in accepting the deportation of their citizens illegally present in the United States.
Well, I mean, that sounds like it's happening exactly the way Trump described it. So, yeah, maybe he was mistaken saying that he was denying Trump all that. I don't know. I think when you can't sell all that cocaine in the U.S., things change pretty quick, right? So,
yeah. I really think that was probably one of the things that pushed this as quickly as it kind of moved. Great photo that I found yesterday making rounds as part of our thumbnail today. If you're watching this on Rumble or YouTube, which I recommend you do, we go live on X, Rumble, and YouTube, The Right Guys Podcast. Subscribe to us there. Even if you're finding us on Twitter now, subscribe to us there. That way you can get notifications when we go live. The image that's been floating around that I love, because you can tell it's just going to keep growing. The sword is going to keep getting longer and longer. Donald Trump with the sword at his like cake cutting ceremony at the Commander-in-Chief ball, holding it upright, dancing the YMCA, and now the Colombian flag impaled on it. I expect this to keep getting larger, the sword getting larger, more flags being impaled on the sword as Donald Trump gets his scalps.
Oh, I love it. Like that's a T-shirt that I would wear, and then
Yeah.
I'd love to like slap on the new stickers each time something happened. Wow. I didn't realize how much cocaine comes out of Colombia. Like it's like almost everything.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
It's a lot.
crazy.
It's a lot. And we're also seeing the use and introduction of AI in political marketing, political communications. We all, for the longest time, have been afraid that AI was going to be used to fabricate clips, to make people say things they really didn't say. I'm sure that's still going to happen. Donald Trump's team, however, is using AI to meme. They are memeing. And this is what he posted
I saw this action.
yesterday.
And I laughed.
It's,
And he's so gangster. I'm ready to use that in the open too. Like Donald Trump's gone gangster. You know?
so this is Donald Trump on his own Truth Social posting an AI generated image of him dressed as like a 1920s, 1930s mobster, complete with the hat.
Yeah.
And there's this sign on the door frame next to him that says FAFO, which is F around and find out. And then there's a little smiley face underneath it, which how does someone prompt the AI to make that? This weird little like
Yeah, put a smile emoji below it, It's gonna happen.
This is the F around and find out diplomacy. I mean, every president has their different diplomatic styles, right? With Teddy Roosevelt, it was walk softly, carry a big stick. With Donald Trump, it's F around and find out.
Yeah.
And you know that everything he put out, he tweeted this from the golf course where he was with Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio informed him, tweet it right out. That's the difference between a Donald Trump trip to a golf course and a Joe Biden siesta on the beach, right? Not only does he still have his advisors and cabinet secretaries around him, but he's still working while playing golf on a Sunday. I think that was those punishments were going to go to the first country that
said
resisted.
No. Yeah.
The first country. And it was almost Mexico. Mexico resisted one flight on a paperwork technicality. Mexico almost suffered this. And do you know what happened immediately after Colombia capitulated?
I'm guessing
Mexico capitulated
and
are now taking non-Mexicans back across the border.
Oh, that's good. Wow, talk about flexing the power of the office. All it takes with Donald Trump now is a tweet while he's golfing. Right? A tweet while he's golfing to make things happen now.
You have the president of Colombia putting out that long, weird, lit 101 diatribe, and Donald Trump just comes back with FAFO.
Fuck. Screw around, find out, man.
Yeah.
If you guys want to play, we'll play. Like he knows how to wield the big stick, right? And I don't think he walks softly. I mean, he busts into a room, he kicks down the door, and he starts telling everybody how it's going to be.
Yeah.
But he said that was going to happen from day one.
Yeah, he did. I sent this to you today, and I know you read it and you laughed. This is a tweet that's kind of been going viral today on Twitter. JD Vance retweeted it. It's from Cynical Publius. And he says, to fully understand just how remarkable today's exchange with Colombia was, you need to understand how Washington, D.C. has traditionally worked through these sorts of issues and the different way it works now under Trump. I'll illustrate. The traditional approach would have been, number one, Colombia announces it will not take our repatriation flights. On Monday, the State Department convenes an interagency task force with DOD, NSC, DEA, INS, ICE, Commerce, Treasury, and Homeland Security. The task force meets for 4 days and develops a position paper. The position paper is rejected by the Secretary of State, who is unhappy that there's not enough equity considerations built into the process. The task force reconvenes a week later, develop these 3 new equity-centric courses of action, and create a new position paper. The process is delayed a week because Washington, D.C. gets 3 inches of snow. Secretary of State approves the new position paper for interagency circulation, and considerable input is received from the heads of other departments. The original 3 proposed responsive courses of action are scrapped in favor of a new 4th course that is the worst aspects of everything that's been introduced. Someone in state who disagrees leaks to the Washington Post, who writes a story about how ineffective the presidential administration is. The White House chief of staff sets up a session 3 days later to brief the president, who approves the 4th new course of action over a month after the issue is first raised. The State Department Public Affairs holds a press conference announcing that Colombia has agreed to try to send fewer criminals to the U.S., and everyone declares victory. That's how it would have usually gone. I mean, this is so stunningly accurate and funny. Like, the funniest part is it's delayed a week because of 3 inches of snow. Yeah. So public sector, it's not even funny. The Trump approach. Colombia announces it will not take our flights after a par 5 third hole where it goes 1 under par. Trump uses his iPhone to post on social media as to how the USA will destroy Colombia's economy if they do not do what the United States demands. By the time Trump gets to the par 4 sixth hole, Colombia's president has agreed to repatriate all illegal Colombians in his own plane, which he will pay for. Trump finishes 3 under par and goes to the clubhouse for a Diet Coke, where he posts a gangsta AI image of him and the new FAFO doctrine, winning. See the difference? It's called leadership. This made me laugh because as someone who, if you know and understand, this made me laugh because if you know and understand and hate federal bureaucracy like I do, it's just so on point, and the bureaucracy is designed to not win.
No. And it's designed to delay. So Joe Biden never had to take a position. So Joe Biden didn't have to do anything. I mean, a lot of those things were still being worked on from the beginning of his presidency to the end, right? Because they never actually had any commitment to it. Donald Trump comes out and in 7 days is like, you know what? It's happening. And if you don't like it, we will destroy your economy. It's fucking gangster.
Yeah. It's
Myself.
very funny. It's very funny. And you'll notice that the traditional way doesn't have the president involved at all. No. And by the time the traditional way of doing it, which is a little bit of an exaggeration, but also very true, by the time it reaches the president's desk, there really isn't any other choice. What's a president supposed to do? Go back to the starting board and have them go another month to figure it out? Or do they take the bad option, right?
Yeah.
Trump's way, Trump is in it in the beginning. He's leading from the front, and he's telling people what to do, how to do it. Now, the reason the bureaucrats hate it is because it takes the power out of their hand.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is full of federal bureaucrats who love to put interagency task force assignments on their resume. People love that shit, right? That can be the hallmark of the pinnacle of their entire career. Like, oh, I worked 30 years in government. Do you know back in 2025, I was part of the Colombian Interagency Commission?
Let's give you a job.
Yeah, let's give them a job. You take that out of their hands completely. And then it becomes not a government where these bureaucrats are making the decisions. No, where these bureaucrats are receiving the orders and they're doing it. Right? The most dangerous person in a room is an unelected government bureaucrat who thinks they know better than the American people. That's the most dangerous person in Washington, D.C. It's not Donald Trump. It's not J.D. Vance. It's not any of the elected officials. It's the unelected bureaucrat who got a 3.0 at American University, worked his way up in government positions, and now believes that he knows better than the American people.
Absolutely. And they start moving around agency to agency, FEMA, right? Start filling in the roles in other places, and you get that same crap.
FEMA's gone, right? I mean,
it has to be,
FEMA FAFO'd. They went through North Carolina and Florida, and they told not just, this wasn't like these people were acting on their own. This was top-down instructions telling the canvassers not to go up to houses that have Trump signs or Trump flags, not to inform these people that they are eligible for financial assistance. That is disgusting. So I don't know why. I don't know what FEMA thought. Did they think Donald Trump would win and they'd still be able to have business as usual? Very obviously not, right? When you are deliberately not helping Trump supporters receive federal aid because you don't want Trump supporters to receive federal aid, you're not going to get to pull the levers and make the decisions anymore.
No. But that should show you everything you needed to know about liberal policy.
Yeah.
They were willing to go after their political enemies in a time of emergency when people were dying and start like the harm that came to them. That was the whole point of FEMA. And to say they wouldn't help one group over another, like that's the most unequitable thing I've ever heard of. It's wrong. I mean, I would never do such a thing. So yeah, FEMA's effed. Like it's gone.
It might look, if you look at that Trump announcement, where it's like, this is what we're going to do. We're doing this. It might look like he emptied the magazine, but he didn't. There were still next steps to take that would have really hurt Colombia.
Okay.
Colombia receives over $330 million of U.S. foreign aid a year. Right now, that's subject to a 90-day freeze. Right? If they FAFO'd anymore, they would have lost that.
What are
for
they doing?
4
Running their
years.
whole
For four
government
years.
on our dime?
Um, a lot of that is used. So some of it is used. It's what the Biden administration did, which is like giving them money. We have to fix the root causes of migration. That was the Biden administration's plan to stop the
Wow.
non-crisis. They said it wasn't a crisis, but then they sent money bags Kamala Harris south to hand out money like it was candy. So their plan was to let's fix Colombia and give them all of our money, and then maybe they won't send their people north. No, they kept sending the criminals north,
Yeah, they just kept the
right?
money. Why
Yeah,
would they change? It was like a win-win for them.
yeah. I mean, you just look at neighboring Venezuela. Venezuela, I believe, fact checkers don't fact me. I'm from memory. I believe that their murder rate was down 70%,
Yeah, it was pretty
and
wild. They went down
that's
pretty
not
far.
because everyone became more peaceful. That's because the murderers and the criminals inclined to murder came to the United States. I mean, that's what happened, right? So all of these countries are experiencing a boom. Imagine, I mean, this is ethnic cleansing talk, and we don't support ethnic cleansing.
Uh-uh.
But imagine if you could just snap your finger and there was no longer a criminal class in the United States.
Holy crap.
Just imagine. I mean,
Yeah,
they still have the cartels, right? They still have that.
sure,
But
sure.
the unaffiliated criminals, the people who are just the
Just
murderers, the
the
rapists,
violence. Yeah,
the violent people. Imagine if you snap your fingers and almost all of it was just gone.
yeah, and your prisons are empty.
Yeah.
Your prisons are empty.
Yeah. Imagine how nice life would be. Imagine how much less money would be spent on incarceration,
Yeah,
on policing, right?
yeah,
Imagine just fewer victims, right? The worst part, I mean, other than the deaths of cartel violence and drug overdoses, the deaths you can never recover from it. But as a nation, you also lose those people's productivity,
yeah.
right? So when you lose 100,000 people a year to drug overdoses, those people can't be productive members of society. They can't contribute. Oh, they can't contribute to the GDP. They can't do any of that, right? So in Colombia, Colombia's in a boom, right? I mean, they're happy
Yeah.
as clams. On the one hand, they get to send all their criminals here. On the other hand, they get the United States to give them 330 some odd $1 million a year.
Man, talk about like a cultural shift that happened in the past 4 years for him to just an immediate change on that. Like they're all coming back, right? What happened to those facilities? Were there still people running them? I mean, I think about all the downstream effects that getting rid of those people had, right? Were they ever used as a kind of slave labor, making like the license plates and stuff? Is the joke goes in prison?
Yeah, I don't know what
What
they
were
do
they
down there.
used for? Like,
I don't
imagine
know.
that.
I don't know what they do down there, but it's pretty obvious if you could snap your finger and a large percentage of your criminal class was just gone. Not just that, the
There'd be
people
no,
coming to the United States are among the poorest in these
yeah,
countries. So you snap your finger, and not only are your criminals gone, but the poorest of your community, people most likely to need government assistance, need government aid, right,
are gone.
are gone. You have a party. You
Yeah,
have a party, right?
it'd be like a golden age at home.
And one day you get a phone call. It's the United States say, oh, by the way, we have a plane load of 80 murderers that we found in our country. I don't know if you have any charges. I don't know if you can lock them up. They're just going to go in your communities now. Colombia responded the way
Yeah,
you wished an American president would have responded when these people crossed the border for the first time.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't, I don't, I'm not mad that Colombia said, hey, we don't want these murderers in our communities. Like, because we don't want them in our communities, right?
Yeah.
But they have to go somewhere, and they're going to their country of origin,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, this whole, what they're feeling is what I wished Joe Biden would have felt.
Yeah.
If he had felt even 10% of the fear that Petro felt, maybe these illegal alien criminals wouldn't have been allowed in the United States. Maybe.
Just shows you that Biden's presidency was nothing but problems. And they were bringing other countries' problems here.
Yeah.
Like that was the goal. I mean, every country in South America that could and did get rid of their prison population sent up here That's a problem for us now. And I just don't want that here. And everyone says, what we're doing is evil. Like, we're a nation of immigrants. We have to let these people in. It's a problem that never should have existed in the first place. And I hope people
No.
remember this in 4 years when it's time to vote again, right? Because that's what you get with Democrats. Problems. Lots of them.
I was thinking of you this weekend. ICE raided a makeshift nightclub in Denver, in Adams County. I
Saw
don't know if
that.
that was Denver proper, or if it was right outside of Denver. This was an illegal nightclub, like a warehouse, where illegal alien gang members were hanging out and drinking. ICE raided the illegal nightclub and arrested 40 to 50 of these Tren de Aragua illegal alien gang members.
Wow. 40 or 50?
Yeah. So this is the gang that was taking over those Aurora apartment complexes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this was what? This was day 6 of the Trump administration. Did it take them 6 days to figure out where these illegal alien gang members hang out on weekends? Or did the Biden administration know and say off limits, you can't raid the illegal nightclub? I mean, this could have been many government agencies could have raided this, right? DEA, ICE DEA raid, right? You could have had ATF raid it over unlicensed liquor sales, right? Any government agency could have cracked down on this. Yeah. None of them did under Biden. So were they ignorant? Did they not look? Was it a hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil? Or did they know about it and let it slide?
Well, let's look at the sanctuary city policy of Colorado and some of these other states, right? They were given a protective class, essentially, for being illegal immigrants while they were here. And look, police knew it was happening because you don't have a bunch of TDA people having a good time getting all liquored up and not having problems like people getting shot, stabbings, drugs, overdoses, lots of overdoses, right? Local law enforcement knows what's going on and they report it up to the higher agencies. And what happens when it gets to the higher agencies? That's where you got your hands off, don't touch them stuff, right?
Yeah. We are up to just short of 1,000 illegal aliens being arrested a day now. 956 arrests on Sunday alone. The rumor is that Donald Trump has given them a quota. Ramp up so that by a minimum you're arresting 1,500 a day. And expect to go much higher than that. Now, it takes time to ramp up to this, right? The Biden administration took ICE out of actual internal enforcement and turned them into babysitters in detention facilities, taking care of illegal alien children, changing diapers, right? All that. It's going to take some time to retool, rejigger this organization to get it back into a law enforcement posture.
Yeah.
What's leaked out is that this was my proposal when it first leaked out when Trump was being sworn in. This, tomorrow there's going to be ICE raids in these cities. Be prepared. And ICE pulled back for officer safety reasons. They don't want people to know exactly where officers are going to be. Apparently, they are going to be doing 7 days a week immigration raids in Los Angeles indefinitely.
Wow.
Indefinitely.
That's a lot of people.
I don't know what the area is like for you in Denver. Next time you're out and about early morning, drive by a Home Depot.
Yeah.
And see if there's anyone loitering outside looking for day labor, right? Drive past here in San Antonio area, we have like Mexican taco trucks. And that's where a lot of like the day laborers and the construction workers, they'll go to these taco trucks. There's one that me and my wife love. We go to all the time because it's great food. Since Trump's been in office, I've gone there twice. First 2 times there's never been a line.
Yeah.
First 2 times. Now maybe that's because of the new year, who knows? But first 2 times I've never had to wait in a long line. Got my food almost immediately. We can notice it here in Texas.
Yeah.
That they are congregating in fewer of the predictable places.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any of that near you?
Oh, there's a lot. There's certainly a lot of that outside of certain Home Depots. Further south, not as much. But Federal Boulevard, where that thing we were just showing where they busted the illegal party. If you go through there and you hang out near the Home Depots and stuff, you see the taco trucks. There would be lines. There's people just waiting to day labor,
Yeah.
right? And they get picked up all the time. And that federal area, like that's where all the congregation happens, right? I would, yeah, they have to move out now because they'll just get picked up outside the Home Depots, the Lowe's. They don't really hang outside Lowe's. Sometimes they'd hang out near some of the actual immigration service centers and the bus stops. That's the other one. Like you get a lot of people that will do day labor near the bus stop, but not like they did. Like if you go there now, you can see some of the cameras downtown. It's a ghost town.
Home Depot, Lowe's near me are ghost towns in the early morning. Where before, if you showed up with a pickup truck, I didn't, but people would show up with a pickup truck saying, "Hey, $50 person, day's work, putting in
dig
shrubs
a ditch,
or
whatever it is,
digging ditches, whatever." People would do it. Now, crickets.
Yeah,
crickets. And one thing that I think is really funny. Last time we were on the show, we talked about Chris Hansen to Catch a Predator.
Oh yeah,
and how they're working with ICE now to capture illegal alien child molesters, rapists. We also have Dr. Phil. Did you see this?
Oh yeah,
Dr.
paying
Phil
attention to that.
is out and about. Oh no, my computer just froze. Can you still see me?
I see you fine.
My computer just froze.
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil, out and about in Chicago on an embed with Tom Homan himself. They found an illegal alien from the Philippines who had previously either been charged or indicted, whatever, for sexually abusing a minor. That's what they present to him. Here's a couple. It's really funny. He realizes that it's Dr. Phil.
Seda.
Seda what? You have a
This is the one I just pulled.
Sam.
Seda Sam?
Yes.
Where are you from?
Where I was born or where I'm from?
Where are you born?
Thailand.
You been deported before from the United States?
No.
Never been deported?
But I've been in the system before.
EMB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you been charged with
Charged for?
before?
I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna talk about lawyer.
Yeah. Are you a citizen?
My mom's a citizen.
Your mother's a citizen?
Yes.
But you're not?
Nope.
But you've never been deported before?
You Dr. Phil. You look like Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know me?
No, I seen Dr. Phil, on TV.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this is an example of sanctuary cities, right? We got an illegal alien convicted of sex crimes involving children. And he's walking the streets of Chicago.
Wait for the answer.
Again, the downfall, the problem with the sanctuary city, that people like us walking the street rather than local law enforcement working with federal agents. This is what we're dealing with. Yeah. You've been charged with sex crimes with children?
Not really.
not
really?
really. I'd say yes or no.
And never been deported?
Nope.
Huh. Let's take them in and process them, lock them up.
I want Dr. Phil on every deportation raid.
Yeah, I do too
The
now.
moment this guy realizes, he says, "I want a lawyer," and the questions keep coming, he looks up and says, "Oh, you're Dr. Phil." Imagine being kicked out of the country by Dr. Phil. Like that's just and the answer, you and I both said it. Were you convicted of, or were you arrested for sexual crimes against a minor? And he says, not really. That's a black or white question.
Yeah, that's a yes or no answer, right? That's yes or no.
This isn't a 17 going on 18-year-old high school kid who was dating a 16-year-old. Clock strikes midnight, he turns 18.
He's a pedophile.
And it's statutory rape. That's not what this is about. It's not a Romeo and Juliet situation. This is a full-grown Filipino illegal alien.
His mom is a citizen and hasn't been deported before. Like he knows the answer to that one. Like you can't say I've been deported before.
He said he's been in the system before.
Yeah, I heard that.
So what that sounds like to me is that he was in the system. He was ordered deported from the country. He probably came in, filed my guess would be he came and filed a bogus asylum claim, didn't show up to his asylum hearing, lived with his mom, right?
Wow.
And he's been ordered deported from the United States, but he hasn't because he's been hiding, and the Biden administration wouldn't find him.
Do you realize we're at a point now where Dr. Phil is with Holman out in Chicago talking to these people and putting it on video, which is the best thing they can do, right? Because the only way to show you got a problem is to admit you have a problem and put it on the internet.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at, because we never got that under Biden. There was never a problem. These people are peaceful. They're just hanging out because they want jobs, Max.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They just want jobs. Notice how, for privacy's sake, they're blurring the faces of all the workers, all the ICE agents. This is something that's very common in Europe, where police officers will wear like balaclavas over their face to completely cover their identity, especially if they're working like immigration cases, because they don't want them to be targeted, their families to be targeted. Yeah. It's very common in Mexico when police go against cartels. They cover the whole face so people don't know where they are. It is very interesting. I mean, it doesn't look like these people are covering their face, but they made the decision to blur their faces for anonymity because they're making arrests of very dangerous, likely some very connected people.
Yeah.
And that's how bad it's gotten here, where you have to actually hide your identity as a police officer. Otherwise, you're going to get potentially face some repercussions.
The cartels are here and they're operating. Yeah. If the Biden administration said otherwise, they lied to you. They've been operating for a while now, and now they're finally being designated as terrorist organizations. At least some of them, right? I'm probably going to see that list grow, but it's only going to get tougher, right? They're kind of shocked right now. They're not sure how to do. There's going to be some pushback by these groups, which is why he had to designate some of these cartels as terrorist organizations, because it will require the full muscle of the U.S. government to make sure that it gets handled. Yeah. And that's where we're at, thanks to Joe Biden.
Another thanks to Joe Biden, under Joe Biden's administration, they lost track of over 300,000 illegal alien migrant children. So one of the largest groups of illegal immigrants are unaccompanied children, UACs. I put this in my book, Conservatives Guide to Winning Every Immigration Argument. The UACs are the most popular, the most prevalent. Them and family units, because families travel together. When a family can't afford to pay the coyotes, the cartels, to transport the entire family, they pay for the child to travel alone. They're an unaccompanied child. The rules for deportations of unaccompanied children are steeper because they're abused, because they're steeper. We can't just be sending kids around the globe. If there are no parents, it's more difficult, right?
Yeah.
You can't put them in adult prisons. It's more difficult. The loopholes are designed to make that a loophole you can get in the country. If you're an unaccompanied child, it is next to impossible for the government to actually hold you and deport you. So what ends up happening is they say, okay, well, what family member do you have in the United States? And they say Uncle so-and-so or Aunt so-and-so or my abuela, right? And they give them to those people. A lot of times, the family members aren't real. They're just cartel contacts, right? Trump 1.0 had them doing blood tests. Biden canceled that to actually prove lineage. So what ends up happening is the cartels take these kids across, and then they hold them hostage, trying to get the family back home to pay more, right?
That makes a lot of sense. And if they don't pay, we know what happens to them.
Yeah, they get put into the sex trade, sexual trafficked. They get put into sweatshops in the United States. This is real, 100% real. So when the Biden administration said they lost track of over 300,000 of these children, not all of them were being sex trafficked. Not all of them were put in sweatshops, but a large number were.
Yeah.
And the really good news is that in the first week, the Trump administration has been able to locate between 75,000 and 80,000 of these missing kids. Now, the question is, did the Biden administration fail to look? Or did they know where they were and not want to rescue them from those circumstances? This is the recurring theme.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What did they know? When did they know it? And were they deliberately stopping these kids from getting saved?
because I have to go with the latter answer there because 300,000 kids is a huge number. That's like taking an entire city's population of children and having them go missing, right? Imagine everybody, it's your whole neighborhood. Like you pick a city, right? And that would be a tremendous number of just missing kids. And they end up over here. It's not like they disappear. I've got to assume they knew where they were. But how many of them got sucked into the trade? How many of them died? Right? How many of them were allowed to suffer at the hands of horrible people because the administration, the Biden administration, did nothing? We like, can you? I can't wrap my head around that number. Imagine how many kids that is.
Imagine being Alejandro Mayorkas taking office as Secretary of Homeland Security under Biden and getting the memo saying that the Trump administration's DNA testing pilot program, testing unaccompanied children and kids in family units against the so-called family members, was pulling up like a 20, 30, 40% false rate, that these people are not really related to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, some could be adopted, right? Sometimes it's, oh, that's my uncle, but he's not really a biologic uncle. That's fine. That's not 20, 30, 40%, right? So imagine being Alejandro Mayorkas learning that there's trafficking going on. And rather than addressing it, you suspend the DNA test pilot program. You cover your ears, cover your eyes, and let the trafficking continue. That's what the Biden administration did.
That's willfulness. That is purposely allowing these kids to fall in the hands of these predators. And we know what they do. They either hold you for ransom, or they sell you to the sex trade, or you just end up dying. Let's not forget that there's houses that have popped up around the U.S. that have been just full of body parts because these bodies have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And how many of those were under Biden? How many of those were underreported? How many of those are still operating? Right? The dead bodies are going to find from all this because the Biden administration will let these kids disappear is going to be staggering. Yeah. Right? And there will be blood on their hands like no one's ever had before.
Probably will never find those bodies.
Correct.
These cartels are organizations that are very good at making bodies disappear.
Yeah, and you're going to find a mass grave in 20 years. And you're going to go, oh, that's where that 20,000 went. Right?
It's unfortunate. But again, I can't stress it enough. The Biden administration knew about this.
Yeah.
They had the resources. There's a hiring freeze in government. No one's been hired and trained in the last week and a half to do these jobs. These are all the same employees that Biden had. Right? With the exception of Kristi Noem, who was just confirmed over the weekend, everyone else is a Biden holdover. Yeah. They had handcuffs on. They weren't allowed to do their jobs. The Biden administration literally turned a blind eye to human trafficking, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking, because in the hierarchy of victimhood, the migrants are above the American people. Protect the migrants at all costs. And now we have a president who's not only willing to go to the mat and fight for us, but he's actually willing to stand on the world stage and say FAFO, F around and find out. You're not going to take back your murderers, Colombia? Okay, you will cease to be a country. Yeah. Your people will eat you. They will rip you from power when your economy crumbles. You want to do that? Let's tango.
Craziest part is
minus the little bit of posturing, they caved. They folded like a cheap beach chair.
How many people in Biden's administration will find complicity in what happened here and could be charged, right? Like if there was willful disregard for the law and there were kids being trafficked, people died, that's complicity on a level that almost feels treasonous, doesn't it? I mean, is it aid and comfort to the enemy? Right? With those cartels, are they an enemy that would fall under that?
And that's kind of the helpful part. I'll end with this. We'll end with this. That's kind of the helpful part of labeling them a terrorist organization. Because then anything you do to aid and abet them becomes providing material support to a terrorist organization. Oof. Right? Oof. Then if you are the nonprofit that's going down to the border, opening up the floodgate and say, hey, come on in. When the coyote is a cartel member, you just opened up the border illegally to a terrorist. right? So the stakes are high. The stakes are high right now. Right now. This is Tom Homan playing nice, right?
Yeah.
It is a crime to conceal an illegal alien in this country. It is a crime to interfere, block immigration enforcement, and it is a crime to do anything to induce an illegal alien to stay. Every sanctuary city mayor, every sanctuary state governor, even like school district officials have been on television in the last 3 days, publicly proclaiming that they are conspiring to interfere with ICE operations and to conceal illegal aliens and to induce them to stay, saying we will protect you. Josh, it is also a crime under 18 U.S.C. section 13 something. Tom Homan knows it by heart. I don't. It is also a crime to conspire to do any of the things that I just listed. So when you have governor of Illinois on TV saying we are actively working to protect our illegal alien residents from ICE, the minute that they put to paper any interdepartmental memo saying this is how we're going to resist, this is how we're going to stop, they are committing a crime. And so the question is, will the Trump administration have the cojones to throw the first sanctuary state mayor or city manager or police chief in prison when they actually stop a deportation raid?
I was just thinking, what happens when they gave them those bus tickets and made it a over state lines thing? And it happened in Illinois, then it happened in Massachusetts, then it happens in Florida, then Colorado. They could be facing like charges in 8 or 9 states, depending on where they sent them through.
That's criminal. It's inducing them to remain in the United States. It's a crime, right? So right now we're going after the illegal aliens. There's going to come a time where the Democrats believe that the targets of these raids deserve protection.
Well, what about people in Congress, like on the squad, who are trying to give aid and comfort too? Like the stuff they were doing and saying.
There are school teachers on TikTok. I didn't pull them, but you can find them.
Yeah.
Saying that they will fight ICE agents if they come into their room to try and deport one of their students.
Gonna get tased, bro.
That is a crime, right? That's a crime. When these teachers sit in the teachers' lounge and all talk about what they're going to do when ICE comes knocking and how they're going to hide the illegals, they are committing conspiracy to conceal illegal aliens. That's criminal. They could go to jail prison for a long time. We are in the FAFO, F around and find out. I don't think these people realize that they are quite literally setting the stage for their own incarceration. It's going to be fun to watch.
It's 3-dimensional chess, though. Yeah. I mean, the downstream of where you FAFO, like, people aren't ready.
Yeah. And listen, no one wants a school teacher being arrested or a city manager being arrested.
Yeah, okay.
So don't conceal illegal aliens.
Yeah.
Don't interfere. Yeah. No illegal aliens voted for these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. That's it for this edition of the podcast. If you like the podcast, subscribe. Subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on Rumble. We're on X, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. We also have the audio edition of the podcast. That's available everywhere audio podcasts are found. We try and make this as audio friendly as possible, which is why I read that entire batshit crazy Petro tweet. So subscribe to the audio edition of the podcast so you can listen as you commute, as you do chores and whatnot. That's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podbean, Audible, all great places. Find it there. Set to auto download, and you'll never miss a show. That's it for this edition. My name is Max McGuire.
I'm Josh Hammerling.
Remember, the fight to take back our country is not over yet, but the only way we win is if we all stand up and fight together. See you next time.